My 36F stepson, 18M, confessed he is in love with me and I need help with what to do next. My stepson confessed he is in love with me and I don't know what to do. This is going to be very long. And I apologize. But the circumstances that brought us here are very specific. And as the title states, I'm unsure of where I go from here. I, 36F, have been married to M, 47M, for a little over a year. And we have been together for 3 years total. It's important to note that we are both widowed, with his spouse passing a little over a year prior to mine. We met in a support group for people whose partners have also passed from this same disease. Neither of us were looking to date, but I kept feeling myself drawn to him, and he felt the same. He'd later admit, and here we are now. We took it slow for the first 6 months. We didn't meet each other's children until we felt it was more than going through the same experiences and mutual loneliness. He has 3 sons. To make this easy, I'll refer to them as A, 18, B, 15, and C, 13. My kiddos are D, 15M, and E, 11F. I was very nervous about them meeting and eventually becoming a family. But surprisingly, all of our kids got along beautifully. It was like a dream. Our sons are all best friends and they dote on little sister so much. B once confided he always wanted a little sister. And this one was the best one he could have been given. I honestly felt like this was a blessing we were given after going through such traumatic years. After a year of dating, M got the kids in on his proposal. And of course I said yes. Because his home is huge. We moved in with him. And eventually I moved to part-time. My own choice. As money is not something we are hurting for. But time kind of is. From what was a very demanding career to a less busy position still in my field. Because I was working less. I was spending a lot of time with the kids. Carpool, sports, etc. I was getting ready to go to college. And due to my background in education, he and I worked hard on admissions essays, studying for tests, etc. He got into his first choice. He's such a smart, kind kid, and when he gave me credit, BCI helped him so much. I was LLMA touched. Here is where it may get a little twisted. While M has never said anything particularly ugly about his first wife, he did tell me that things were rough for years prior to her getting sick. She was not a happy, nor patient woman. He said she could be very cold and there was no pleasing her. She was incredibly intelligent and an expert in her field. Thus, she wasn't home much during the weekdays. And when she was, the children tested her patience and there were screaming matches most nights. As a result, the boys were not very close to her. They loved her, of course, but nobody would ever accuse them of being mama's boys. In addition, she was very thrifty, despite the fact that they could definitely afford it. Birthdays and holidays were always small celebrations, and there was never any decorations. She considered them frivolous. And maybe they are, but to me, it's fun and helps keep the magic alive. I go all out. I've been called extra. And not just for holidays. I like my house to feel like a home. And while the house is beautiful, it just felt very blank and sterile. With my husband and the boys okay and input, we have slowly added pictures, plants, and other assorted decor, including a lot of both C and E's artwork. They're both great little artists. To the walls, bookshelves, etc. After we decorated for Halloween this year, for the first time, told me that they'd never done this. Was very religious and thought Halloween was satanic. And after a long period of silence, told me he was happy his dad found me. I was once again touched. I wrote that novel so you guys could see. There are stark differences between S and myself. I'm not trying to say she was a bad mother. Just pointing out how absolutely different we are in every way. Even how we look. She was very petite, Nordic, and beautiful, while I'm kind of an Amazon woman. Tall, curvy, and have darker features due to my Hispanic heritage. Now to D-Day. A goes to college about 45 minutes away, and has to live on campus for his first year. He comes home most weekends. But the weekend in late September when we decorated for Halloween and celebrated one of the kids' B-days was the last time he's been here. We still all talk in our family group text, FaceTime, etc. M and I just chalked it up to being busy with classes and figuring out how to live on his own. So when M asked if he was coming for Thanksgiving, I said yes. And we were stoked. M and I love to cook. So we went all out. We let each kid pick one specific thing to add to the menu. Made tons of little finger foods. And had a beautiful spread of food for our family of 7. As well as some friends who joined us. It was a perfect day. When all was said and done, I asked M to go get the hot tub ready so we could all relax afterwards and I'd do the dishes. I said he'd help. And the rest of the kids followed M. Probably BC they didn't want to help. I was rinsing the dishes while I was loading them in the dishwasher. At one point he looked at me with the saddest face and asked if we could talk. I asked if he needed a hug. And he said yes. So I gave him a big one. And that's when my brain fired off warning signals. He held a little tighter than usual. His hands lingered a little longer than usual. This was different. He looked in my eyes and started crying, while he confessed he was in love with me. He said he was ashamed and he's been trying to stay away to make these feelings go away but he can't. He apologized several times and begged me not to tell his dad. Among other things. I'm so torn up about this. He feels terrible. He feels guilty and like a bad son. He's already lost a mother and now he's scared he's going to lose his father. Which I know will not happen. M is a compassionate, loving man. He adores our children. On my end, I know for a fact these feelings are because he has never had a healthy mother-son relationship. His mom didn't dote on him and his brothers. And I do. Perhaps too much. Now it seems I keep thinking maybe I shouldn't have been as affectionate. I'm a hugger. But I know I've never forced it on them. Maybe I shouldn't have worn bikinis in the pool and hot tub or sports bras and leggings around the house before, after workouts. I'm rethinking every decision I've made in the past couple of years as a mother to these new children I've been blessed with. And it's an awful feeling. If you've read this whole wall of text, thank you for sticking with me. Please, tell me what to do next. I don't want to lie to my husband. But I also can't stand the thought of hurting A by betraying his trust. Therapy is obviously a necessity. But M will find out and ask questions. This family is the most important thing to both of us. There has to be a way to resolve this. He's 18. With time, he's going to get over these feelings and meet a girl his age. You did nothing wrong. You're a smart, kind woman. And this kid clearly recognizes that. If he likes you, it's a sign that one day he'll bring home a girl his age who has a similar level of kindness and maturity as you. Be upfront and honest with your husband. You may have to set some boundaries with your stepson right now. But soon enough his crush will pass. And hopefully he'll move on to someone more appropriate for him. I don't think he's in love with you in a romantic way. I think he loves you because you gave him attention and affection at a time he desperately needed it. And is confusing it with romantic love. Not everyone learns that love comes in many varieties. Get him to therapy to learn to discern the differences. At least. I hope that's what's happening. First of all, I'm sorry to hear about what you are going through. It was very brave of you to share. Firstly, please don't overthink the bikini and leggings wear around your own home. You are able to dress how you want. That has nothing to do with what A is going through. I admire that he was able to share this with you. And be open. It's probably misplaced due to not having a touchy-feeling living relationship with his mom who passed away. However, he could probably do with some therapy. For losing his mom, how he was treated by her. You also can't keep this from your husband. There's nothing good about keeping a secret. If there is a way to not betray A's trust by talking with him first, saying why you need to tell your husband and explain why. Then work out how. Does he want to be with you and you tell him together? Stuff like that. Perhaps introduce A into therapy. And maybe it can be brought up in a joint family session at a later date if that's needed. Tell your husband. You say he loves your family. Trust him to handle it well. Nothing good will come from keeping this a secret. This sounds like misplaced grief, and therapy is definitely a must. Over time his feelings will fade. But it will be painful in the interim. For all of you. Accept that it will be difficult for you in A&M and that this is something that will need to be worked through. Hoping your conversation with your husband goes well. You can't keep this from your husband. It is just too massive. Do you trust your husband to handle it well? And yes, therapy, therapy, therapy. For him and for the two of you together if needed. He is clearly reacting to grief. Any decent therapist will be familiar with this phenomenon because it happens in therapy a lot. So, sometimes with grief, wires can definitely get crossed. Our emotions and reason get jumbled. Were I you, I would have the conversation with your stepson of defining what he's really feeling here. He thinks it's romantic love. But it's more of a dependency that he's confusing with love. And with emotional intimacy, you naturally eroticize it. The whole stereotype of falling in love with your therapist thing. But in having this conversation with him, he needs to understand that what he's feeling is being mistaken for something else. If you have any personal examples of catching feelings with people you were emotionally intimate with, bring this up. This is important. He feels alone. And sharing your personal experience will be helpful. You're trying to redefine it for him. In doing so, you're showing him that he's not alone. You've gone down a similar path. And you're helping him see a way out of this confusion. Regardless of how this goes, you do need to tell your husband. But when communicating with your husband, I would not illustrate it as romance. I would frame it as an unhealthy dependency and attachment. It's an easier pill to swallow and it's not lying. Once you communicate that, because you need to frame it for him, then say that your stepson made a confusing confession. You need to stress the dependency portion and point out his grief. Because that's what this is. Obviously, Reddit is the cheap route. Therapy is the more public and costly route. Please update us. Definitely a conversation you should be having with your husband. While A may feel betrayed, your marriage is also hanging in the balance. Also, yes, definitely therapy for him. Maybe even family therapy with A. M. and yourself. A may just be misplacing his love for you as a mother as more than it should be. Because he's never felt that kind of affection from one before. You need to tell your husband. But warn A first and ask how he'd like to go about it. Does he want to tell his dad himself? With you present, or just have you do it for him? At 18 his hormones are through the roof and he's far more likely to associate any large feelings with sex as a result. Combine this with his grief from losing a mother. his joy with finding a connection and the stress of starting college, and you've got the perfect storm. He needs therapy to work through these feelings. Once everything is out in the open, that should be your next step. Both individual and family sessions. I'm really happy for you for finding happiness again after losing your husband at such a young age. If I were you, I'd talk to A and tell him you have to tell your husband. That way you don't betray him. Try to gently make him understand that he can't ask you to keep this from your husband. And then, as many already pointed out, therapy would be great. I don't even think A would need a lot of sessions. Just a few to make him understand his feelings and how to handle them. All the best. I'm sure it'll turn out fine. From what you've written, A and your husband sound like really good eggs. 1. Tell your husband. 2. Reinforce boundaries with kindness. 3. Get the kid into therapy. I've experienced something quite similar to this, but definitely not the same context. When I was in college, I thought I had a major crush on this guy. Turns out, I actually really love him like a brother. I guess it was because I didn't know yet at that time what it's like to be very close to the opposite gender without having any romantic feelings for them. I confused my deep, deep love for him as romantic, whereas I just love him deeply as a brother. Another instance. Just a couple of months ago, I thought one of my friends liked me and I thought I also had a crush on him. Turns out, he was just really kind and my crush on him was just me misplacing my desire to have kind of like an older brother relationship. My point is, it's very likely that he's just misunderstanding his deep love for you right now. He probably really loves you as a mother but just doesn't know it. Like what other comments would say. You did nothing wrong. Please have him talk to a therapist to help him understand these feelings, and do tell your husband. Rooting for you. Your stepson needs therapy. His feelings for you may not even be being in love but an attachment because he never had a mother figure in his life, especially one that gives so much affection and attention, and he may feel confused. Being 18 too, pumped full of hormones, does not help. There's a lot for the poor boy to detangle. It can be really difficult to differentiate between different subjective feelings of love. You're giving him a fundamentally different feeling than his bio mom did. That, plus the clusterfuck of hormones 18-year-olds are swimming in, plus grief, it creates a kind of hotbed for misplaced emotions. It's nothing you did. It sounds like what you're asking yourself right now is, maybe if I was a worse mom, this would have turned out differently. And it probably would have. But it probably would have turned out bad different. Not good different. Kiddo doesn't need more coldness and fewer hugs. You're showing him a kind of love he hasn't experienced, and he doesn't have the tools to process it. Because he never needed to with bio mom. Like others are saying. Therapy. And you should probably talk to your husband. Your parents together, and this is your kiddo. It sounds like your own guilt. And your fear of triggering kiddo's guilt are making that really scary right now. But it'll be easier to navigate out in the open. The kid has mommy issues. Very obvious. He found an affectionate and loving mother, and in his mind he is in love. He can't differentiate the two feelings. I think therapy needs to be talked about, and you should definitely talk to your husband. That's enough of Reddit today. With A, I would ask M to go somewhere private and sit down and have a chat. I would speak to A first about it, and express your concerns and why you need to tell M. B. See, he's your husband, his father, etc. I too believe that this isn't a simple crush. I would say possibly an infatuation or fantasy of sorts stemming from a plethora of reasons. It could be anything from the issues you touched upon regarding S to influence from pornography as Stepsons and stepmoms seems to be a popular choice among younger men. It definitely requires further investigation. Let a know that feelings are complicated and not always controllable. And that's okay. But keeping them pushed down and secretive isn't healthy. He was brave and honest in telling you, and that's good. Even if it's going to be tough to work through. He needs to talk to a therapist to get to the root of what's going on. He could just be feeling genuine love and emotional intimacy for the first time, alongside the loneliness and homesickness of college, and confusing it with romantic love. He should also tell his dad, but give him a timeline to do so by, with the caveat you'll tell husband if he doesn't. I think you should talk more with the boy first and see where he's actually at and why he feels that way. Read in between the lines on what he say and see if it's really because he's lacked that motherly love growing up. If your reasoning is correct, there's no need to tell your husband. That will throw off the dynamic of everything. Just tell the boy you don't think he's in love with you. He's in love with how you treat him. It's all in his mind. I'm gonna assume this is real, so let me say he needs therapy. I wanna say he probably has mommy issues and you came in and he's now confused after his previous mother treated him badly. A show of hands please. Who thinks this is real? Anyone?
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epicaricast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.